Alright guys, what started out to be a small repair turned into one of the biggest surprises on the foundation we've ever seen. This old farmhouse floor looked rough from the top, but as we tore into the floor, we found more and more. The sill was rotten, the joists were rotten, and the main beam that holding up the house was basically dust. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what we had to tear out, what we discovered, and how we started saving this old farmhouse. This is part one of a structural rebuild, so stick around. It's going to be good. When we bought this whole place, we knew it had foundation issues, but we decided to go ahead and purchase at a reduced price. We got a pretty good deal on it. You could feel the dips in the floor and the sponginess, and you could hear a little cracking and stuff like that going on. You could see sags in the wall, the wall wasn't exactly right. The door, you could see uneven door jambs and stuff like that. So we knew we had issues. But once we actually got underneath it and started our repairs, the damage was way worse than we expected. At first, we tried to do the repair through the crawl space, but we realized real quick there wasn't enough room under there to be lying on the ground trying to do this extent of repairs. There was way more than we expected. The seal along the front door was completely rotten. Years of moisture had rotten away the joist. I'm not sure if back in the day they had a water leak that they didn't know about and water ponded under there and just rotted this wood and these joists out. The joist was so bad you could snap pieces off in your hands. The main support beam was soft. You could stick a screwdriver through the wood. It was just that spongy. From above, you could see where the floor had settled, an inch and a half, couple inches. So, we knew we had seal issues there. But once we pulled that carpet back and removed that 50-year-old tile, and let me tell you, when you're removing that old tile, the best thing we found was a straight edge hole. It'll get it up pretty good. The house was basically floating, from the wall supports. Nothing we could trust, nothing we could build off of. And here's the part nobody wants to hear when they're doing a renovation on an old home. Every single joist had to come out. Not just one, but all of them. The entire system. Let me show you how we're gonna fix it. Because the crawl space wasn't giving us enough room to work, we come in right behind the front door. First, we measured off a 4x4 area, cut it out. That hole became our main work area. That way we could get to that seal. I knew I could get to that seal there, so that became our main work area. But as we got into that hole, we started removing more and more and more. We realized we was gonna have to jack up and support the walls in order to hold the house. And from there, we started removing all the joists. Once we opened up that floor, we could see the extent of the damage and how many joists we was gonna have to remove. A lot of the lumber had an old black rod on it. You could take a screwdriver and just stick through the wood. You could take a screwdriver and stick through the wood like butter. Once we got all those joists out, I knew I was gonna have to replace that main beam running under that wall. So we pulled out some sheetrock and we scabbed us on, basically, I think it was a 2x6 or 2x8. We scabbed onto those studs on that wall. That way we could use our jacks to get under that, give us a lifting point to get the weight up off that beam so we could properly remove it. We got us a couple of hydraulic jacks and got in there and started lifting up. We only lifting up just enough to relieve the pressure so we can get that beam out from underneath there. And this takes patience. You can't rush lifting a house, even a little. If you raise it too fast, you'll crack your drywall, doors won't close, and you can even twist the structure. But once we get the weight off that old beam, we'll be able to we'll cut that beam up and slide those pieces off in chunks. Honestly, it's not gonna take a whole lot. It's that bad. Remember, this is only the beginning. We got a couple more rooms there, so it's gonna get worse. Leave that living room open to access that crawl space, and hopefully I can get under there and replace those joists without tearing this whole complete floor out like we did in the living room. Once we got that wall lifted up and supported so everything wouldn't twist, I removed just about all the joists. I found 3 there that had just a little bit of strength in them. So I left them just to keep everything from twisting. I've got to get a beam under there in order to get something to attach to start getting some structure to come back with. We pulled out that floor. We took rakes and stuff and cleaned that crawl space and tried to level it up as much as we could. Get all that old rotten wood out of there and get it out and getting it disposed of. Basically preparing to bring in our new beam and our new joists, and all that already be taken care of. And that's a lot of work. Don't nobody want to do. And hey, somebody's got to do it. And if you're doing this type of work on an old home, you got to take your time. You double check your measurements, line up your bearing points, make sure everything's level and square before you bring your new joists in and attach them. In the next step of this series, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the new beam in, start laying out our joists, and tying everything back into the walls the correct way. Once the floor system is rebuilt and we get our other room stabilized, we can start putting this living room back together. This isn't a small job. It's basically rebuilding the bones of this old farmhouse. But once it's done, this old farmhouse will be as strong and structural as it has been in the last 50 years. And there you'll have a home that you're proud of and it's structurally sound. So if you're dealing with foundation issues, sagging floors, or soft spot, do not ignore them. What you see on the surface is usually just a small part of your damage. We thought we was just going to replace a sill and move on. We haven't replaced the entire flooring system and foundation of this old home. This is part 1 of this series. Make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can follow us along, so you don't miss the next video where we install the new beam and start bringing this flooring system back together. And as always, God bless. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.